The champagne cork popped with a hollow sound that echoed through our living room. Sarah's eyes sparkled with an intensity one hadn't seen in years as she raised her glass, the amber liquid catching the evening light. "To the new CEO of Hartwell Industries," she announced, her voice carrying a sharp edge of triumph. I clinked my glass against hers, genuinely proud despite the knot forming in my stomach. "You deserve this, Sarah." All those late nights and sacrifices finally paid off. We'd both worked at Hartwell Industries for nearly a decade. I'd started in the software development department, working my way up to senior project manager. Sarah had climbed the corporate ladder in operations, her ruthless efficiency and political savvy making her indispensable. Our colleagues used to joke that we were the power couple of Hartwell, though lately, the joke felt less funny. The distance between us had grown incrementally, like continental drift. It started with missed dinners, then separate bedrooms blamed on her early meetings. Now we were more like cordial roommates than husband and wife. But I'd convinced myself that once she achieved her goals, things would improve. How naive that seems now. "There are going to be some changes, David," she said, settling onto the couch with unsettling composure. "Big changes. Hartwell has been stagnant for too long, and the board has given me carte blanche to restructure." "That's exciting," I replied, though something in her tone made me uneasy. "Any departments in particular?" Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "All of them. Starting with technology. Your department has been underperforming for quarters. Project delays, budget overruns, missed deadlines." I felt heat rise to my face. "That's not entirely fair. We've been understaffed and dealing with legacy systems that should have been replaced years ago. My team has actually performed remarkably well given the constraints." "Excuses," she said dismissively, swirling her champagne. "That's exactly the attitude that needs to change. In business, results matter, not explanations." The conversation left me troubled, but I pushed the concern aside. Sarah was under pressure. New CEOs always talked tough about accountability and change. It was corporate theater, nothing more. I was spectacularly wrong. Monday morning arrived with unseasonable rain, as if nature itself was signaling the storm ahead. I barely settled at my desk when my email pinged with a meeting request, executive review session, mandatory attendance, conference room A, 9 a.m. The conference room was already full when I arrived. My entire department sat around the long table, their faces reflecting varying degrees of confusion and concern. Sarah stood at the head of the table in a charcoal suit that screamed authority, flanked by two people I didn't recognize. A severe woman with a tablet and a man whose expressionless face belonged in a poker tournament. "Good morning, everyone," Sarah began, her voice flat and professional. "I'm sure you're all wondering why you're here. As many of you know, I officially assumed the role of CEO this morning. My first priority is addressing the chronic underperformance in the technology department." My stomach dropped as murmurs rippled through the room. Colleagues I'd worked with for years avoided my gaze. "After extensive review," Sarah continued, pulling up a presentation, "it's clear that leadership in this department has been inadequate. Projects are over budget, behind schedule, and failing to meet basic quality standards. This reflects a fundamental failure of management." She clicked to the next slide, which showed a reorganization chart. My name was conspicuously absent. Effective immediately, David Morrison is terminated from his position as Senior Project Manager. His responsibilities will be distributed among the remaining team under new leadership structure. The room went silent except for the rain pelting the windows. Every pair of eyes turned to me. My wife, the woman I'd supported through graduate school, who I'd encouraged to pursue every opportunity, who'd slept beside me for 12 years, had just fired me in front of my entire team without a private conversation, without warning, without even the courtesy of basic human decency. "Sarah," I said quietly, my voice remarkably steady despite the rage building inside me, "this is highly irregular. Don't I at least deserve a private meeting? This is a business decision, Mr. Morrison, not a personal one. Your performance speaks for itself. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. Your final paycheck and severance information will be forwarded to you." As if summoned by dark magic, 2 security guards appeared at the door. That's when I understood. My wife hadn't just fired me. She'd orchestrated my public humiliation. And in that moment, watching her cold, satisfied expression, I realized our marriage had been dead for far longer than I'd admitted. But if Sarah thought I would crumble, beg, or cause a scene, she didn't know me as well as she thought. I stood slowly, gathered my notebook, and looked directly into her eyes. I understand completely. Thank you for the clarity, Ms. Mitchell. Using her maiden name, the one she'd recently insisted on using professionally, I saw the briefest flicker of something cross her face. Surprise? Disappointment that I hadn't reacted? As security escorted me out, my mind was already working. Sarah had made a critical mistake. She'd assumed I was powerless, that destroying my career would destroy me. She had no idea what I was truly capable of. The cardboard box containing my desk belongings sat on my kitchen counter like evidence at a crime scene. A coffee mug with "World's Best Dad" from a Secret Santa 3 years ago. A small succulent that had somehow survived my neglect. A framed photo of Sarah and me from our honeymoon in Santorini. Both of us laughing, sun-drunk and happy. I stared at that photo for a long time, trying to recognize the people we'd been. My phone buzzed constantly. Colleagues expressing shock and outrage, though notably through personal messages, never company email. No one wanted to be associated with me now that I'd been marked as a failure. Corporate environments have a way of making pariahs of the fallen. One message stood out, from Marcus Chen, a cybersecurity specialist I'd hired 2 years ago. David, I'm so sorry about what happened. Can we talk? Not work-related. Important. We met at a coffee shop downtown, the kind of place where freelancers nursed single espressos for hours. Marcus looked nervous, constantly glancing over his shoulder. I shouldn't be doing this, he said, sliding a USB drive across the table. But what Sarah did was wrong, and you deserve to know the truth. What truth? Marcus leaned in conspiratorially. For the past 6 months, I've been monitoring unusual activity on the company servers. Someone's been manipulating project reports, altering budget figures, changing status updates on your projects specifically. I documented everything because I thought we had an external breach. My hands went cold. What are you saying? The access logs trace back to Sarah's executive account. She's been systematically sabotaging your department's records, making successful projects look like failures. That presentation she showed this morning? Those weren't the real numbers, David. She manufactured your failure. I stared at the USB drive. Why would she do this? I don't know, but there's more. She's been having regular private meetings with Richard Koslow from Titanium Corporation. They're one of our biggest competitors. I accessed her calendar through administrative access I probably shouldn't have. These meetings aren't logged in any official capacity. The pieces began forming a picture I didn't want to see. Corporate espionage. Maybe. Or she's planning to jump ship and wanted to clean house first. Eliminate anyone who might be loyal to the old regime. By firing you publicly and brutally, she sends a message. Nobody is safe. Fear is a powerful management tool. I pocketed the USB drive. Marcus, if this comes out, you could lose your job. He shrugged. I've already got interviews lined up. Once I saw what she did to you, I knew this wasn't a company I wanted to work for anymore. Besides, you gave me a chance when I was fresh out of school. I don't forget that. That evening, I sat in my home office, the room that had once been our shared study before Sarah claimed she needed absolute silence and took over the master bedroom, and examined Marcus's evidence. It was damning. Project status reports I'd submitted showing on-time completions had been altered to show delays. Budget spreadsheets I'd created had numbers changed to indicate overruns. Comments and approvals I'd never made appeared under my name. Sarah had spent months building a case against me, creating a paper trail of incompetence when none existed. This wasn't a sudden decision by a new CEO. This was premeditated destruction. But why? The answer came through an unexpected source. My mother-in-law, Patricia, whom I'd always gotten along with better than Sarah had. She called late that night, her voice tight with anger. David, I just heard what Sarah did. I'm appalled. I raised her better than this. It's corporate politics, Patricia. These things happen. Don't make excuses for her. I know my daughter, and I know when she's plotting something. She paused, and I heard ice clinking in a glass. She came to visit me last month, asked about prenuptial agreements and how community property works in divorce cases. The floor seemed to drop beneath me. She's planning to divorce me. She's been planning it for a while, I think. She asked whether firing a spouse and causing them to be unemployed before filing for divorce would affect alimony payments. I told her she was being calculating and cruel, but Sarah has always been willing to do whatever it takes to get what she wants. Why tell me this now? Patricia's voice softened. Because whatever happened to the girl I raised, she's become someone I don't recognize. You've been a good husband, David. You supported her through everything. You don't deserve this. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness, letting the full picture crystallize. Sarah had orchestrated my firing to weaken my position before divorcing me. By destroying my professional reputation and leaving me unemployed, she could argue that I contributed less to the marriage financially, potentially reducing any settlement I might claim. She'd weaponized her position, used company resources to wage a personal war, and violated every ethical boundary in the process. The old David might have felt crushed, betrayed, helpless. But sitting there in the dark with evidence of corporate fraud and personal betrayal literally in my hands, I felt something else entirely: clarity. Sarah had made this about power. She'd used her position to humiliate me, to crush me, to send a message that she was untouchable. She'd violated corporate policy, possibly broken laws, and destroyed a career I'd built over a decade because she saw me as an obstacle to be eliminated. She'd forgotten something crucial. I'd been at Hartwell Industries longer than she had. I knew where bodies were buried, which skeletons rattled in which closets. I'd built relationships while she'd built walls. I'd created loyalty while she'd manufactured fear. Sarah wanted to play games? Fine. But she'd made the fatal mistake of assuming I'd play by her rules. I'd spent 12 years married to her. I knew how she thought, what she valued, where she was vulnerable. Over the next several hours, I made calls, sent encrypted emails, activated relationships I'd maintained but never leveraged. By dawn, I had the framework of a response that would turn her calculated destruction into her own undoing. Sarah had fired the first shot, but she'd badly underestimated her target. She thought she'd destroyed me. Instead, she'd freed me from the one thing that had been holding me back: loyalty to her. The game was on, and I intended to win. Sleep became optional. Over the next 72 hours, I transformed my home office into a war room. The evidence Marcus provided was the foundation, but I needed more. I needed an irrefutable case that would withstand scrutiny from board members, lawyers, and potentially federal regulators. My first call was to Jennifer Huang, an old friend from graduate school who'd become a corporate attorney specializing in executive misconduct. We met at her downtown office, a gleaming tower that spoke of successful cases and powerful clients. "David," she said, reviewing the documents I'd brought, her expression growing increasingly serious. "This is significant. If these access logs are authentic, Sarah violated the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, Sarbanes-Oxley provisions about financial reporting accuracy, and probably half a dozen corporate governance policies." How significant? Career-ending. Potentially criminal. The board would have no choice but to terminate her immediately if this became public. The liability exposure alone would demand it. She looked up at me. "But you need to understand something. Going after a CEO, especially one who just started, requires absolute precision. If you miss, if there's any way she can spin this or punch holes in your evidence, you become the disgruntled ex-employee with an axe to grind." "I'm not missing," I said quietly. Jennifer studied me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "What exactly are you planning?" "Justice. And maybe a little poetry." Over the next week, I became a ghost, invisible but everywhere. I reached out to former colleagues who'd been pushed out over the years, people who'd left Hartwell with stories but no platform. I compiled a list of Sarah's questionable decisions, the projects she'd claimed credit for but hadn't actually led, the people she'd stepped on during her climb. I discovered something interesting. I wasn't her only victim. Sarah had a pattern. An operations manager fired 3 years ago for performance issues who'd actually disagreed with her cutting safety corners. A marketing director who'd left voluntarily after Sarah had stolen and presented her strategy proposal as her own. A CFO who'd resigned mysteriously after questioning some of Sarah's budget reallocations. Each had pieces of a puzzle. Together, they formed a portrait of someone who'd been gaming the system for years. But I needed something more immediate, something current that would force the board's hand quickly. That's when I remembered Richard Koslow and Titanium Corp. I reached out to a private investigator I'd once helped when his daughter needed an emergency medical system I'd designed. Tommy Reeves was old school, the kind of investigator who still did stakeouts and knew how to develop film by hand, but he was thorough and discreet. Follow her, I told him. Document every meeting with Koslow. I need dates, times, locations, and if possible, photographs. You think she's selling company secrets? Tommy asked. I think she's selling something. I need to know what. While Tommy worked his magic, I focused on the board of directors. Hartwell Industries was publicly traded but family-controlled, with Marcus Hartwell Sr. still holding significant influence despite stepping back from day-to-day operations. He was old money, old school, and valued reputation above everything. I'd met him exactly once, at a company retreat 5 years ago. We'd had a surprisingly deep conversation about systems architecture and organizational efficiency. He'd been impressed that a project manager understood both technical and human systems. I'd thought nothing of it at the time, but now that memory became leverage. I sent him a carefully crafted letter, not email, but actual paper and ink, because men like Marcus Hartwell responded to formality and tradition. I didn't mention Sarah by name. Instead, I outlined concerns about data integrity issues in executive reporting and potential conflicts of interest with competitor organizations. I included just enough detail to seem credible, not enough to seem vindictive. I suggested a conversation in the interest of protecting the company's reputation and shareholder value. 3 days later, his assistant called to schedule a meeting. Meanwhile, Sarah was dealing with problems of her own making. Through the network of former colleagues I'd activated, I learned that her aggressive restructuring was causing chaos. She'd fired 2 more department heads in the week following my termination, and morale had cratered. Key employees were updating their LinkedIn profiles and taking calls from recruiters. Projects were stalling because she'd eliminated institutional knowledge in her pursuit of efficiency. The development team I'd led was particularly struggling. The new manager she'd brought in, some hotshot from a failed startup, was discovering that enterprise software development wasn't the same as building consumer apps. I received messages from former team members asking for advice, which I provided freely. Not to sabotage Sarah directly, but because I genuinely cared about the work and the people. But there was a strategic element too. Every problem that emerged in my absence reinforced the reality that my firing had been unjust. The breakthrough came from Tommy Reeves. You need to see this, he said, spreading photographs across my kitchen table. They showed Sarah and Richard Koslow at an upscale restaurant, heads close together, reviewing documents. Another series showed them at a hotel entrance, though Tommy was careful to note the timestamps showing they'd left separately after what appeared to be a 3-hour meeting. No romantic involvement that I can see, Tommy said, but lots of document exchanges. I managed to get telephoto shots of some of the papers. Their technical specifications, product roadmaps, looks like Hartwell proprietary information. Can you testify to this if needed? I can and will. I've documented everything, maintained chain of custody on all photographs. This is admissible. I added Tommy's evidence to the growing file. Jennifer Huang reviewed everything and nodded slowly. You've got her, she said. Corporate fraud, potential trade secret theft, falsification of records, and if the board moves quickly, you can probably prevent any actual secrets from being sold. The question is, what do you want? What do I want? I repeated, considering. I want her to feel exactly what she made me feel. That moment when the walls close in, when you realize you've lost everything, when the people you thought you controlled turn on you. I want her to understand that actions have consequences. Revenge, Jennifer said quietly. Justice, I corrected. There's a difference. My meeting with Marcus Hartwell Sr. was scheduled for Friday morning at his estate, a sprawling property that spoke of generational wealth. He received me in a library that probably cost more than my house, surrounded by first editions and the smell of old leather and older money. Mr. Morrison, he said, shaking my hand with surprising strength for a man in his 70s. I remember you. You talked about systems thinking and how organizations are living organisms. Not many young people understand that. I appreciate you seeing me, sir. Your letter was intriguing. Vague enough to pique her interest, specific enough to suggest legitimacy. Well played. He gestured to a leather chair. Now tell me what's really going on at my company. I laid it out methodically, the falsified reports, the pattern of retaliation against competent employees, the meetings with competitors, the evidence of potential trade secret theft. I provided documentation for everything, organized in a presentation that would make any board member take notice. Hartwell's expression grew darker as I spoke. When I finished, he sat silently for a long moment. Why come to me? He finally asked. Why not the current board members, the ones actively involved in management? Because Sarah has cultivated relationships with them. She's political, charming when she needs to be. They saw her as the future of the company. But you, sir, you built this company with your father. You care about legacy, about reputation, about doing things the right way. I'm betting you still have enough influence to force action. He smiled, a thin expression that didn't reach his eyes. You're betting correctly. I may have stepped back from operations, but I still control 35% of voting shares. The board listens when I speak. He stood, walking to his window overlooking manicured grounds. Your wife did this to you. Soon-to-be ex-wife, apparently. Personal and professional betrayal. That takes a special kind of ruthlessness. He turned back to me. What do you want from this, David? Your job back? Financial settlement? To see her destroyed? I want the truth to matter, I said. I want people to know that you can't lie, cheat, and abuse power without consequences. And yes, I want my reputation restored. Sarah didn't just fire me. She tried to erase everything I'd built, to paint me as incompetent and worthless. I want that corrected. Hartwell studied me for a long moment. I'll convene an emergency board meeting. I'll need you to present this evidence formally. Are you prepared for that? I've been preparing for it all my life. As I left his estate, my phone buzzed with a message from Marcus Chen. Sarah just fired 3 more people. The company is hemorrhaging talent. Whatever you're planning, do it soon. I replied simply, already in motion. The board meeting was scheduled for Monday. Sarah had no idea what was coming. She'd spent 2 weeks as CEO, drunk on power, certain of her invincibility. She was about to learn a lesson I'd learned in my years as a project manager. Every system has vulnerabilities. Every plan has weaknesses. And the most dangerous enemy is the one you've underestimated. The boardroom at Hartwell Industries occupied the top floor of the headquarters building, a space designed to intimidate with its floor-to-ceiling windows, imported marble conference table, and leather chairs that probably cost more than most people's cars. I'd never been in this room before. Sarah had made sure of that. Now, standing at the head of that table with a presentation remote in my hand and 8 board members staring at me with varying degrees of skepticism and curiosity, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Marcus Hartwell Sr. sat at the opposite end, his face impassive but his eyes sharp. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending on short notice. Mr. Morrison has brought serious allegations to my attention regarding executive misconduct. I've reviewed his preliminary evidence and believe this warrants our immediate attention. Mr. Morrison, you have the floor. Sarah wasn't present. The meeting had been scheduled as a strategic planning session to avoid alerting her. Through the glass walls, I could see her office down the hall, lights on, probably preparing for whatever battle she thought was coming next. Thank you, I began, my voice steady. 3 weeks ago, I was terminated from my position as senior project manager in what was presented as a performance-based decision. What I'm about to show you is evidence that my termination was not based on performance, but rather was the culmination of a months-long campaign of data manipulation, corporate fraud, and abuse of executive authority. I clicked the remote. The first slide appeared, a side-by-side comparison of an original project report I'd submitted and the altered version that had been presented to justify my firing. This is the quarterly status report for the Genesis project, submitted on June 15th. On the left is the original document from our system archives, showing on-time completion and 3% under budget. On the right is the version presented during my termination, showing 2-month delays and 15% cost overruns. I walked them through slide after slide of evidence, access logs showing Sarah's account making unauthorized changes, timestamp screenshots, email trails that had been deleted but recovered from backup servers. Marcus Chen's cybersecurity analysis showing systematic manipulation across multiple projects. The board members' expressions shifted from skepticism to concern to alarm. If this were an isolated incident, I continued, it might be explained as a mistake or misunderstanding, but the pattern extends beyond my situation. I presented the cases of other employees Sarah had forced out, the documentation showing similar tactics. A marketing director whose successful campaign had been credited to Sarah while the director was fired for poor performance. An operations manager whose safety concerns had been recharacterized as insubordination. Then came the Titanium Corp evidence. Over the past 6 months, CEO Mitchell has had 17 documented meetings with Richard Koslow, Vice President of Technology at Titanium Corp, our primary competitor. These meetings were not disclosed on any official calendar or reported to the board. Private investigator photographs showed document exchanges at these meetings. I displayed Tommy Reeves' photos, enhanced and enlarged. In several images, Hartwell technical specifications and product roadmaps were clearly visible on the table between Sarah and Koslow. Additionally, analysis of outgoing data from CEO Mitchell's accounts shows transmission of proprietary information to external email addresses registered to shell companies that trace back to Titanium Corp subsidiaries. The room erupted. Board members talked over each other, demanding to see evidence, questioning methodology, expressing outrage. One member, Catherine Torres, the CFO, held up her hand. "This is incredibly serious, Mr. Morrison. You're alleging corporate espionage. Do you have proof that Sarah Mitchell actually transmitted proprietary information, not just met with a competitor?" I clicked to the next slide, email headers, data transmission logs, and forensic analysis from a cybersecurity firm Jennifer Huang had hired. Yes. This forensic analysis shows 7 separate transmissions of classified technical documentation from accounts controlled by CEO Mitchell to external recipients. The analysis has been conducted by CyberShield Analytics, a firm with credentials accepted in federal court. Marcus Hartwell Sr. leaned forward. "Mr. Morrison, I have to ask, what is your motivation here? You were fired by Ms. Mitchell. Some might argue this is the revenge of a disgruntled employee." I'd anticipated this question. That's a fair concern, sir. Which is why I've had every piece of evidence independently verified. The forensic analysis was conducted by a firm that had no prior knowledge of the situation. The access logs can be confirmed with your own IT department. The surveillance photographs are time-stamped and geo-tagged. And perhaps most importantly, you can verify everything I've shown you directly with your own systems. I paused, meeting his eyes. My motivation is simple. I spent a decade building value for this company. I built teams, delivered results, and contributed to Hartwell's success. Sarah Mitchell destroyed my reputation and career based on manufactured evidence. She did this not because I was underperforming, but because I was a political obstacle to her plans. If this behavior is acceptable at Hartwell Industries, then the company I thought I worked for never existed. There was a long silence. Finally, Marcus Hartwell stood. "I want an immediate independent audit of all executive actions taken in the past year. Catherine, engage a forensic accounting firm by end of business today. Legal counsel, I want criminal and civil exposure analysis on my desk by tomorrow morning. And someone get Sarah Mitchell in here right now." 2 security personnel were dispatched. Through the glass walls, we watched them enter Sarah's office. From this distance, I couldn't see her expression, but I saw her body language change. The sudden stiffness, the defensive posture, the attempt to project authority even as she was being escorted toward the boardroom. When she entered, her eyes scanned the room and locked onto me. For just a moment, I saw genuine shock. She'd never expected to see me here, in this room, holding court with the board. "What's going on?" she demanded, recovering quickly. "I wasn't informed about this meeting." "Sit down, Ms. Mitchell," Marcus Hartwell said, his voice cold. "We have questions about your conduct as CEO." What followed was an interrogation that would have been excruciating to watch if I hadn't been the victim of her machinations. Sarah tried every tactic: denial, deflection, attacking my credibility, suggesting the evidence was fabricated. But each attempt crumbled against the weight of documentation. When confronted with the titanium court meetings, she claimed they were innocent networking. When shown the data transmission logs, she suggested her accounts had been hacked. When presented with the falsified performance reports, she insisted she was relying on information provided by others. "Ms. Mitchell," Catherine Torres said, her voice sharp, "these reports have metadata showing direct editing from your authenticated account. The changes were made from your computer, in your office, during hours when security logs show only you had access to that area. Unless you're claiming someone stole your identity with the sophistication of a nation-state actor, these modifications came from you." I watched Sarah's face cycle through emotions: anger, fear, calculation, and finally, something I'd never seen before: defeat. Her shoulders sagged slightly, the armor of confidence cracking. "I want to speak with legal counsel before this proceeds further," she said, her voice tight. "That's your right," Marcus Hartwell replied. "But effective immediately, you are suspended from all duties pending investigation. Your access to company systems is revoked. Security will escort you to collect personal belongings. The board will reconvene tomorrow to vote on your permanent status." Sarah stood, and for just a moment, our eyes met across the boardroom. I saw the question there: how? How had the husband she'd dismissed as weak, the manager she'd painted as incompetent, the obstacle she'd thought she'd eliminated, managed to dismantle her entire empire in less than 3 weeks? I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I simply held her gaze with steady calm until she looked away. As security escorted her out, a bitter echo of my own departure 3 weeks earlier, Marcus Hartwell approached me. "Mr. Morrison, the board will be conducting a thorough review of your termination. I expect we'll find it was entirely unwarranted. In the interim, would you consider consulting for us? We need someone who understands our systems and can help stabilize the technology department during this transition." "I'd be honored," I said, "though I do have some conditions." His eyebrows raised. "Oh." "Full restoration of my professional reputation, including a formal statement from the board. An independent review of all terminations and resignations from the past 2 years to identify other victims of similar treatment. And I want a seat in any discussions about Sarah's settlement or criminal prosecution." Hartwell considered this, then extended his hand. "Done. Welcome back, Mr. Morrison." As I left the building that evening, my phone buzzed with messages. News of Sarah's suspension had already leaked, and former colleagues were reaching out with everything from schadenfreude to sincere expressions of support. But one message stopped me cold. It was from Sarah's personal number: "You destroyed me. I hope you're proud." I stared at that message for a long time, standing in the parking garage where I'd been escorted out by security 3 weeks ago. Did I feel proud? Vindicated? Victorious? Mostly, I felt tired, and sad for what we'd lost long before she'd fired me. The partnership, the respect, the love that had somehow curdled into strategic warfare. I typed a response: "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it." The game wasn't over. There would be legal battles, divorce proceedings, months or years of fallout. But the crucial battle had been won. Truth had emerged. Justice, imperfect as it always is, had been served. Sarah had taught me an important lesson: power without integrity is just tyranny waiting to collapse. She'd wielded her position like a weapon, never considering that every system has checks and balances, every tyrant eventually faces accountability. As I drove home through the city lights, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: hope. Not for reconciliation or restored marriage. That ship had sailed. But hoped that maybe competence and integrity could still matter. That doing good work and treating people decently wasn't just naive optimism but a foundation that could withstand storms. The next chapter of my life was beginning. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be honest. And that made all the difference. 6 months later, I stood in the same boardroom where I presented evidence against Sarah, but everything felt different. The autumn sun streamed through those imposing windows, and the leather chairs held a different configuration of people. Some old faces, several new ones, and me, sitting not as a supplicant but as interim chief technology officer. Marcus Hartwell Sr. tapped his pen against his water glass, calling the meeting to order. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to discuss the final chapter of what I'm calling the Mitchell situation, and to vote on David Morrison's permanent position within the company. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of reconstruction. Sarah's suspension had lasted exactly 48 hours before the board voted unanimously to terminate her employment. The forensic audit had uncovered even more than I'd initially discovered. Kickback schemes, vendor fraud, and yes, confirmed sale of trade secrets to Titanium Corp. Federal prosecutors had gotten involved. Sarah was currently free on bail, awaiting trial on charges of corporate fraud, theft of trade secrets, and wire fraud. Her attorney had reached out multiple times seeking a meeting, which I declined through Jennifer Huang. I had nothing to say to Sarah that lawyers couldn't handle. The divorce had been surprisingly straightforward. With evidence of her fraud and the prenuptial agreement we'd signed, ironically at her insistence years ago to protect her assets, the settlement had been quick and clean. I'd kept the house, my retirement accounts, and my dignity. She'd kept her legal problems and the realization that sometimes scorched earth tactics leave you standing in the ashes alone. But the real work had been rebuilding Hartwell Industries' technology department. When I took over as interim CTO, I told the board, we had a 47% vacancy rate, demoralized remaining staff, and 3 major projects on the verge of complete failure. Today, we're fully staffed with people who actually want to be here. Morale is the highest it's been in years according to our employee surveys, and all 3 critical projects are back on track. I clicked through a presentation showing metrics that told the story. Productivity up 34%, employee retention at 92%, project delivery times improved by 28%. But more importantly, I showed them the human element, testimonials from employees, innovations that had emerged when people felt safe to take risks again, cross-department collaborations that flourished when fear was replaced with trust. The lesson we learned, I continued, is that leadership built on fear and manipulation might generate short-term results, but it's fundamentally unstable. Real, sustainable success comes from empowering people, creating systems where competence is rewarded and integrity is non-negotiable. Catherine Torres, who'd become an unexpected ally through this process, nodded approvingly. Mr. Morrison, you've demonstrated not just technical competence but the kind of leadership this company needs. The board has reviewed your performance as interim CTO, and I'd like to formally propose we remove the interim from your title. The vote was unanimous. I was officially CTO of Hartwell Industries, with a compensation package that reflected the position and a mandate to continue the cultural transformation I'd started. After the meeting, Marcus Hartwell Sr. pulled me aside in the hallway. You could have destroyed this company, he said quietly. When you came to me with that evidence, you could have leaked it to the press, tanked our stock price, created chaos. But you didn't. You gave us a chance to fix it internally, to address the problems with dignity. Why? Because I never wanted to hurt Hartwell, I replied. I wanted to save it. Sarah made this personal, but my commitment was always to the work, to the people, to building something that mattered. Destroying the company to get revenge on her would have made me just like her. He smiled. That's why you're the right person to lead us forward. Don't forget that perspective when things get tough. That evening, I met Jennifer Huang for dinner at the restaurant where this whole ordeal had begun to crystallize months ago. She raised her glass of wine in a toast. To justice, she said. To moving forward, I countered. She laughed. Always the optimist. You know Sarah's attorney is going to make a plea deal. She'll probably serve minimal time, if any. I know, I said. The justice system is imperfect. But she lost everything that mattered to her. Power, reputation, career. the respect of her peers. That's its own kind of sentence. No lingering anger. I considered the question. I'm not going to lie and say I've completely let it go. What she did was betrayal on every level. But holding on to anger would give her power over me, and I'm done with that dynamic. She made her choices. She'll live with the consequences. I'm focused on what I'm building, not what she destroyed. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus Chen, who'd become my deputy CTO, new hire just accepted. The team's all here for tomorrow's kickoff. This is going to be great. I smiled, typing back a quick confirmation. Tomorrow we were launching a new initiative I designed, a mentorship program pairing senior engineers with junior staff, built on the principle that knowledge hoarding creates vulnerability while knowledge sharing creates resilience. It was the opposite of everything Sarah had believed in, and it was working beautifully. As I walked home that night, I'd started walking more, enjoying the city I'd been too stressed to notice before. I passed by the Hartwell Industries building. Lights blazed in the technology department where my team was probably working late, not because they were forced to, but because they were excited about what they were building. I thought about the David who'd walked out of that building 6 months ago, escorted by security, publicly humiliated, professionally destroyed. That David had felt small, powerless, betrayed. The David walking past now understood something crucial. Power doesn't come from position or title or the ability to make others afraid. Real power comes from competence, integrity, and the relationships you build when you treat people with respect. Sarah had taught me that lesson, though not in the way she'd intended. She'd shown me exactly what not to be, how not to lead, what not to value. In trying to destroy me, she'd inadvertently revealed the path forward. My phone rang. It was Tommy Reeves, the private investigator. Hey David, just thought you'd want to know. Titanium Corp just announced their VP of Technology, Richard Koslow, resigned. Word is the FBI investigation into the trade secret theft is expanding to include him. The system working as designed, I said. Sometimes, Tommy agreed. Not often enough, but sometimes. After we hung up, I stood for a moment looking up at the building where I'd spent a decade of my career. Where I'd been betrayed, fired, humiliated. Where I'd fought back, revealed truth, and ultimately reclaimed not just my position but something more valuable. Proof that doing things the right way, even when it's harder, even when it takes longer, can actually work. The final piece of closure came a week later. I was in my office, a corner space with a view, appropriate for a CTO, when my assistant informed me I had a visitor. Patricia, my former mother-in-law, stood in the doorway holding a small box. I won't take much of your time, she said. I just wanted to return these and say something. The box contained photos from our wedding, some of Sarah's belongings she'd apparently left at her mother's house, small mementos of a marriage that felt like it belonged to different people. I'm sorry, Patricia said simply. I'm sorry for what my daughter became, what she did to you. I tried to raise her better, to teach her that success without character is just elaborate failure. But somewhere along the way, she stopped listening. It's not your fault, I told her. We all make our own choices. We do, she agreed. But I want you to know that not everyone in the Mitchell family thinks what she did was acceptable. You were a good husband, David. You deserved better. After she left, I looked through the box. One photo caught my attention. Sarah and me at a company picnic years ago, both in casual clothes, laughing at some joke I couldn't remember. We looked happy. Genuine. I wondered when exactly it had changed. When had ambition curdled into ruthlessness? When had partnership become competition? When had love become leverage? Maybe there wasn't a single moment. Maybe it was incremental, like how you don't notice winter coming until you're already cold. I placed the photo in my desk drawer, not displayed but not discarded. It was part of my story, a chapter that had ended but shouldn't be forgotten. Every experience, even the painful ones, taught something valuable. From Sarah, I'd learned about the corrupting nature of unchecked power. I'd learned that treating people as obstacles or tools rather than humans creates a fragile foundation. I'd learned that shortcuts and manipulation might produce quick wins but inevitable collapse. But I'd also learned about resilience, about the power of documentation and truth. about the importance of relationships and reputation built over time, about the satisfaction that comes from doing difficult things the right way. 3 months after becoming permanent CTO, Harvard Business Review reached out for an interview about leadership and crisis management. During that interview, the journalist asked the inevitable question, "Do you think your wife, ex-wife, regrets what she did?" I considered carefully before answering. I can't speak to her regrets, but I hope she eventually understands that you can't build anything lasting on a foundation of fear and deception. Real leadership requires courage to be honest, strength to be vulnerable, and wisdom to empower others. Position is just a title. Character is who you are when no one's watching and nothing's forcing you to do the right thing. That quote ended up being the pull quote for the article. It ran with a photo of me in the rebuilt technology department, surrounded by team members, everyone smiling genuinely. Sarah saw the article. I know because she sent one final text, "You always were better at playing the victim." I deleted it without responding. She still didn't understand, and probably never would, that I hadn't played victim. I'd refused to be one. There's a difference between being victimized and being a victim. The first is something someone does to you. The second is a choice about how you respond. A year after my firing, Hartwell Industries won Best Place to Work in Technology from a major industry publication. The employee testimonials in our submission told the story of cultural transformation, of a workplace where people felt valued, where competence mattered more than politics, where doing good work was the best career strategy. At the award ceremony, I accepted the trophy on behalf of the company. In my speech, I said, "This award represents what's possible when you build culture on trust, empower people instead of controlling them, and remember that companies are made of humans, not resources. Every person here matters. Every contribution counts. And every day, we prove that doing things the right way isn't just morally correct, it's strategically sound." The applause was genuine, thunderous. Looking out at the audience, I saw team members I'd hired, colleagues I'd supported, people who'd been given second chances after being pushed out elsewhere. I saw the future I was building, and it looked nothing like the past Sarah had tried to force upon me. That night, standing in my home office, no longer a refuge but a workspace for genuine productivity, I finally removed the last box of old Hartwell materials from the closet. Most of it went into recycling. But I kept one thing, the cardboard box from my firing, the one that had held my meager belongings that terrible day. I kept it as a reminder, not of pain, but of transformation, of the moment when everything fell apart and I had to decide who I would become in the rebuilding. Sarah had tried to break me. Instead, she'd forged me into something stronger. The game she'd started, she'd lost. But I'd learned something more valuable than victory. That integrity isn't a weakness to be exploited, it's a foundation that can withstand any storm. And as I look toward the future, toward new projects, new challenges, new opportunities to build something meaningful, I knew with certainty that while Sarah had written the beginning of this story with betrayal and cruelty, I had written the ending with resilience and principle. She'd expected me to crumble, to rage, to be destroyed. Instead, I'd responded by being exactly who I'd always been, just with clearer vision and stronger resolve. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes, it's simply refusing to become what tried to break you, and building something better from the pieces.